Hello, my name is Juan Carlos, and today we'll be seeing the language Dynamo Charlotte. This is the language I created, which is a beginner-friendly language that allows to create anything from numbers all the way to multi-dimensional arrays. And in this video, we'll see how to run it and how we can actually use it to make general purpose code. So let's start. The first thing we need to do is to go to replit.com. which is an IDE which is online and allows us to modify the code from a GitHub repository, or you can also work from a project that you want to start from scratch. So let's go to this page. Let's wait for it to load. And once we're right here, what we need to do is to actually create a project. First, you actually need to get into the page and you need to create an account, which is pretty simple. Just get your credentials, your email, password, etc. And once you're right here, you're going to be at this page. So the first thing we actually need to do is to get to the repository, which is in GitHub, right? Which is going to be this one. Let's paste it. It's going to be github.com/jcjuarez/Dynamo Charlotte. So Dynamo Charlotte is a Python-based interpreter that runs in Python LexJack parser. It is a beginner-friendly language with a syntax similar to Visual Basic in Python that allows to create anything from numbers all the way to multi-dimensional arrays. So its goal is to create a simple coding readability, and well, this is the whole documentation right here. You can actually check it out. Be free, make sure that you check it out and read it all. And okay, so once you actually read it all, and we're still gonna be able to read it inside Replit, you'll see in a minute. So all we got to do in this case is just to copy this URL, and let's head back to Replit. And let's clearly click and create a REPL. Okay, so the first thing you actually need to do is to import from GitHub. You can also create it from scratch. You would just select Python, and you can also follow the instructions where you just have to download the folder or you can clone it. But we will clone it online. So just click right here on import from GitHub, and all you gotta do is to paste the same URL right here. So we're gonna paste it. And now we'll simply click on import from GitHub. Now it'll load a page, and basically it'll clone the whole project online, so in your IDE in Replit. So as you can see right here, just as we said before, here we have the whole documentation in Markdown, so you can also read it right here inside Replit, and we'll take a look at it in a minute. So the first thing that we'll be looking right now is how to run it. So when you have right here at this screen, you need to select the language. In this case, it's going to be Python, and we need to specify which is going to be the file that we're going to be running. In this case, what we can do is to define a new file. For instance, let's call it my first Dynamo, right? .py. It runs in Python. So this is going to be the first Dynamo Charlotte code we're going to be doing, right? So now that we have this one, now we just have to specify, okay, I want to run Python, and we want to run my first Dynamo.py, correct? And once we do this, we just want to click on run, on done. So let's hope everything goes fine. And once you get this screen, it says the language is going to be Python 3, and you're going to be running Python my first Dynamo.py. So far so good. So now let's head back to this one, and before we started with the code, let's take a quick look at the documentation and what it's got to say, right? So I am the author of this programming language. It is a compiler that runs in Python parser, which is called LexJack. And this is a parser that allows you to define a token, and it's basically the grammar of the whole language, and allows you to create a language in the same structure as you would do it in another parsers. And well, it's got some pretty interesting things. It has explicit data type, so it's strongly typed, and also it allows non-dynamic memory. So in order to understand the basics, we can also define basically a static memory in order to know how simple things actually work in the very basics. So as you can see right here, the requirements, right, for running this one is that you need to have at least Python 3.6 installed. If you want to run it locally, if you run it inside the IDE, it's going to be alright. It has already a Python version, which is at least this one. And basically, if you want to run it locally, you would just download the Dynamo Charlotte folder. In this case, as we have it online, there's no need for that. We're going to just run it right here. And basically, all you need to do is to say import Dynamo Charlotte as DC, and now all we need to do is to call dc.run. We need to pass this function, and everything will be passed inside this triple quote string. And this is how we'll be actually running the program. And basically, all Dynamo Charlotte programs include a main and an end keyword at the beginning and at the end, which defines the beginning, the start of the main program, and where it ends. So this is how it will look, the template will look. Now that we know the basics, this is how a simple hello world program would look like. Would say import Dynamo Charlotte as DC, we'll pass dc.run, so run the code, and it'll pass a main. And for instance, just before we get into some other things, let's just define and say quickly what is a print. Just as in Python and in many other programming languages, it prints out to the console as string, which we'll see right in a minute. So it just prints hello world and the end. So let us try it out, right? So let's copy this one. You can copy it right from here, and let's head back to this one. So in this video, we'll just cover the basics of basically some variables that we can use, some operations, arithmetic, etc. So let us copy and paste what we said, and now let's see how it works, right? Let's click on run, and as you can see right now, it says hello world, Dynamo Charlotte. And just as we said right here, this is going to be what's going to be printing out to the console. Whenever we see these arrows pointing outwards, that means that we are printing something into the console, right? Okay, so far so good. We made our first print hello world, right? Just by copying and pasting this little example. Okay, so coming back, let us see more considerations about the grammar and some syntax, right? There is no indentation needed in Dynamo Charlotte. Nevertheless, it is strongly recommended for a better visualization of the overall code. The operator's priority is the same as in most programming languages, and there are two main types of variables. The ones that are traditional, which are going to be basically just a number and a string, and objects, which are based vectors, matrix, and cubes, which we will see in later videos. Object variables are heterogeneous. What this means is that a vector can contain either numbers or strings, and the same goes for matrix and cubes. Variables cannot start with numbers and cannot be the same as reserved tokens, and we use camel case notation for variables in Dynamo Charlotte. Okay, so far so good. So we already know which is the main section, right? We said that it will always start with a main, and it will always end with the end keyword, just as this example, and you can have anything inside your main. Okay, now let's see something really important, which are the comments. So the comments are basically what you can omit in the code, so you can comment code out to say that this does something or something else, and you can put it in any part of your code. For instance, we can say this is our first code, and this will have no influence because this is just a comment, so we can run it again and basically the comment will be ignored. So we can write anything we want inside the whole code of Dynamo Charlotte. Okay, so far so good. Now we have the traditional variables, the ones we already saw before, and there are two types, right? The number basically can only hold numerical variables, and it can be decimals as well. We can have a 3 or a 3.2, 0.15 or 99. It's basically any kind of number. And then we have a string, which holds text values, right? And cannot operate with arithmetical operators. What numbers can actually do multiplication, sum, subtractions, etc. But nevertheless, they can be appended to more strings, which we'll see in a minute. So they can be, for instance, hello world, which we already did, red car, 3, which is still a number, but now it's going to be a text, right? For instance, this is all text. So it's not going to be an operation to be performed with another thing, right? It's just going to be text. So they have to be declared at the top beginning of the program every single time. So for instance, if we want to define my number as a number, we have to do it above the main. So we can always do it like this. So let us see now how we can assign some things, right? Once we actually define which is going to be a variable, we can say, okay, my number will be equal to 3 because we said, okay, my number is going to be a type number, and then we can find my string is going to be a type of string. And this basic notation for it. You always start with the name, with the token var, to define this is going to be a variable, and then you give the name of the variable, then you say as a type. So var, the name you want to give it, as type, which is going to be either a number or a string. And when you just want to assign the value, it will simply say, okay, it's going to be equal to, for instance, to 3, or it's going to be equal, in the case of the string, to the text, right? And it's important to remember that all strings need to be in the format inside these quotes, like this. So let us now get back into the code, and let us do some examples to see how it works. So we can leave the comment right there. So let us define now our first variables, right? Let's say that instead of saying just hello world, we want to say hello world, but we also want to say which year we are at, right? So for instance, we can actually just say hello world. And one quick cool thing about this is that you can append another string. Basically, you can append, in this case, hello world, and you can say the year is 2021, which is the year we're currently at, right? So you can run it, it's going to say the year is 2021. Nevertheless, what about if we actually want to change the year to 2021? You can actually change it right here. But what about if we, instead of doing that, we say, okay, what we're going to be doing right here is I will say, okay, my var, then let's call like the current year. So it's say the current year as a string. And basically what we will say right here, we already defined string, and we'll say my current year can be equal, in this case, to what? Exactly, to 2021. And inside a string, because we want it to be a string. So we can say the year is, and then we append again, and we say current year. Let's run the code, and just as before, it's the same, because now we're using a variable to represent the same string as before, and we're just appending it right here. Something which is actually quite interesting is that all print functions allow coercion. Coercion is that thing that allows you to transform basically a type into another type just by the compiler doing so. So for instance, if we instead of saying that this is going to be a string, we said that this is going to be a number, and we make that now it's not going to be 2021 as a string, but it's going to be as a number itself. This is still going to work. As you can see right here, it still says 2021. The reason for that is because it's coercing. Basically, any string you give to the print is going to be still a string, but also every single integer or number that you give to the print, it'll coerce it and transform it into a string. So it will still work. Okay, so far so good. So let us say now that we want to get, for instance, now operations, right? So let us define some things right now, right? In this case, let us do more operations with strings. So for instance, let's say that we want to get something as, okay, I want to say your name is whichever name your name is, right? So let's say I want to say hello world. And let's say in this case you can say your name is the following, right? And let's say that your name is, in this case, we can call it my name. And let us define a variable that now will be equal to var my name as a string, right? So it's going to be quite the same, right? We can just say in this case, okay, let us define that now my name will be equal, in my case, will be equal to Juan, right? I am Juan. So we'll just say, okay, my name is whichever name we pass, in this case is Juan, right? But let's say that we actually want to ask for the user which is their name, right? So instead of actually just putting this right here, we can actually just ask it from the console. So what we can do is use something which is called input. So input, and we pass as a parameter my name, it will ask which is your name, or it will ask for the data inside the console. So we can just run the code and look what will happen. As you can see, the arrows now change and they are pointing inwards, which means that it's asking for information. So when they point inwards, they ask for information. So in reality, we're asking for my name. So let's say that my name is now Juan. And now the result when which we click enter is hello world, your name is Juan, because now we entered a name. And you can do some formatting right here as you wish, right? It can be on the same line, we can say print. And if we want to print on the same line, we can say something print line in this case. Hello, what is your name, correct? And let's see how it works, right? It says, hello, what is your name? And as it is still in the same line, we don't have those arrows pointing inward, but still we're asking for the name. And let's say that now, again, Juan, correct? So let's just pass on this one and we get the same result. Okay, so far so good. So let's say that now we want to calculate which is going to be, for instance, my age, right? So in this case, now we can actually use numbers. So for numbers, basically it's going to be the same as we did before. We're going to find, for instance, var, right? And let's say again the current year, right? Current year as number to know which we're at. And also, let's say that I want to get which is my age. So we can calculate my age. For instance, let's make a comment, right? We know that my age is going to be equal to what? My age is going to be equal to the year I was born, I mean the current year, minus the year I was born, right? So if the current year is 2021, let's say that I was born in the year 2000, I would be 21, correct? So let us define just a variable that we're going to be using as my age, var my age, as number, and also let us find the year I was born. So this is going to be like the result, and we can say just var year born as number. Okay, so let us leave this as it was, right? We asked for the name, but now let's say that we want to say, okay, let us assume that we're going to be in the year 2021, but you can still ask this one, right? So you can, in this case, you can, in order to actually go to the next line, you can say print, and you can put inside end line. So this will actually allow you to go into a next line, so you don't actually mix the text in the same line. So let's say that we ask now for which is going to be the year that you were born, right? So we can actually say, okay, print line, so we can print on the same line and ask in the same line, what year were you born? Okay, so in this case, let's say that now we just say input, and here we'll pass basically year born. So we'll pass which year we were born, and now we can just calculate which is going to be my age, as we say it right here in the comments. So I know that my age, right, will be equal to the current year, which I know it's always going to be 2021, so we can just define, for instance, my current year, we can define it to be 2021. It's going to be equal to what? Current year minus the year I was born, which I already asked for it, which is year born. And well, that's it, right? Just with that, you can say, okay, right, your name is, and we can just append something else, right? Now we can append which is going to be your age. So we can end your age is, and we can just append in this case my age, right? Plus my age. Remember, even though it is a number, it will still convert into a string. So let's see how it works. Hello, what is your name? Let's say that my name is again Juan. What year were you born in? Let's say that I was born in the year, let's say that I was born in the year 1998. Okay, so it says, hello world, your name is Juan and your age is 23, because if we calculate 2021 minus the year 1998 would give us that our age is in fact 23 years old. So this has been a quick introduction to Dynamo Charlotte and how it works. As you can see, this is a very simple programming language. You may find some similarities between Visual Basic or Python or even C++, or for instance the comments. So it's actually a project where we're actually mixing things from many other languages, whichever we found useful. And we wanted to make it a beginner-friendly language, so anyone who's interested in software engineering can actually take a look into this and try them out for ourselves. So as we can see right here, these were pretty much basics from strings, numbers, operations, as you can see, and basically this is going to be some very simple stuff. But later on, we'll see some other things that we'll get into functions, we'll get into conditionals, we'll get into vectors, matrices, cubes. We'll see also recursiveness, and practically we'll see many other things. So with all of this, I hope you really like this programming language, and I think it's really cool to actually know something which is out of the box, right? Not all the time we see a programming language that is different from the ones we already are used to seeing. So yeah, that's practically it for this video. I just wanted to show you the basics. I hope you learned a little bit of how you can import something into Replit as well. It was also an informative video about that. And well, yeah, just keep tuned in order to see what else we can keep on doing with Dynamo Charlotte. And I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Dynamo Charlotte video. Thank you.